At the start of another new year, really just an arbitrary angle of the Earth's axis relative to the Sun, people like to reflect on their lives, what they've done, and where they're going. They also like to make resolutions for the future. I'd like to discuss doing that here for all of humanity. We experience the direct benefits of our technology every day, and sometimes it seems overwhelming, but the question I want to ask is, why are we where we are and no further? Is there a way we could have been centuries ahead of where we currently are? If the ancient Greeks had had their way, there would have been an age of enlightenment for these past 2,000 years. They constantly observed the night sky and tried to figure out our universe. Just by looking at the phases of the moon, they could draw the conclusion that the moon was spherical in shape. By looking at the lunar eclipse, they could see that the Earth's shadow always had the same arc, regardless of where the moon was in the sky, meaning that the Earth was spherical too. Not only that, but they could tell the ratio between the size of the moon and the size of the Earth, about 1 to 3.7. Then, about 2,200 years ago, Eratosthenes of Cyrene made an interesting discovery. He had read that in the city of Siena, obelisks do not cast shadows at noon on the longest day of the year, and the sun shines straight to the bottom of the deepest well. He wondered what would happen in his hometown of Alexandria. He found that a stick put straight into the ground in Alexandria did indeed cast a shadow at noon on the longest day. By measuring the ratio of the shadow's length to the stick, he determined that Alexandria must be about 1/50th of a way around the world from Siena, which was about 5,000 stadia away. We don't know exactly what length he was using for the stadium, but if we use the Egyptian stadium, his result was within 1% of the correct answer. This is impressive since he had no accurate way of measuring distances. Siena isn't precisely on the Tropic of Cancer, and Alexandria isn't exactly due north of Siena. Moreover, once he had the size of the Earth, he could use the established ratio to determine the size of the moon as well. If this isn't enough for you, then look at Aristarchus of Samos. He was another brilliant observer who calculated the distances of the sun and the moon, and also discovered axial precession. But his greatest work is one that does not survive to this day. Without the benefit of the telescope, Aristarchus managed to work out a model of the solar system with the sun at the center, the Earth in orbit around it, and the stars very far away. Archimedes wrote, "Aristarchus has brought out a book consisting of certain hypotheses, that the universe is many times greater than the universe just mentioned. His hypotheses are that the fixed stars and the sun remain unmoved, that the Earth revolves about the sun on the circumference of a circle, the sun lying in the middle of the orbit, and that the sphere of fixed stars, situated about the same center as the sun, is so great that the circle in which he supposes the Earth to revolve bears such a proportion to the distance of the fixed stars as the center of the sphere bears to its surface." So why can't we read this book? Why can't we see how he did it? Why did it take us another 1,600 years to rediscover this truth about our universe? Even the Catholic Church only recently acknowledged the Earth's proper position in space, and as we have seen, even today some people still refuse to believe it. Why? The blame rests squarely on the rise of Christianity. In 391, the Christian Emperor Theodosius I ordered all pagan temples to be destroyed. The Christian Patriarch of Alexandria, Theophilus, carried out this request. He demolished several temples and murdered countless followers who refused to convert to Christianity. At this time, the repository of all knowledge, as it had been for centuries, was the great library at Alexandria. The scholar in charge of the library was a woman named Hypatia. Although she had little time for religious superstition, there was mutual respect between her and Christians. They considered her to be a symbol of virtue, and in fact she remained a virgin until the day she died. In March of 415, Bishop Cyril, perhaps infuriated at the respect Hypatia afforded his rival, the prefect Orestes, declared the library to be a pagan temple. A mob of Christian monks carried out the standing order and laid siege to the library. A contemporary historian Socrates Scholasticus wrote, "As she had frequent interviews with Orestes, it was calumniously reported among the Christian populace that it was she who prevented Orestes from being reconciled to the bishop. Some of them therefore waylaid her returning home and dragged her from her carriage. They took her to the church called Caesareum, where they completely stripped her, and then murdered her by scraping her skin off with tiles and bits of shell. After tearing her body in pieces, they took her mangled limbs to a place called Cinaron, and there burnt them." Later, a letter with her name on it surfaced, condemning Christianity. It was a forgery by Cyril's followers. Cyril himself was made a saint. Her real story was co-opted and used for the story of Saint Catherine. 2 centuries after the event, Bishop John of Nicaea put the Christian spin on the story. "And in those days there appeared in Alexandria a female philosopher, a pagan named Hypatia, and she was devoted at all times to magic, and she beguiled many people through satanic wiles. A multitude of believers in God proceeded to seek for the pagan woman who had beguiled the people of the city and the prefect through her enchantments. They dragged her along until they brought her to the great church named Caesareum. Now this was in the days of the fast. And they tore off her clothing and dragged her through the streets of the city till she died. And they carried her to a place named Cinaron, and they burned her body with fire." The differences between these 2 accounts should tell you all that you need to know. The destruction of the library itself set back the progress of mankind for 1,000 years. Fortunately, not all of it was lost. The identity of the rescuers may surprise you. In 642, a Muslim army defeated the Byzantines. It was widely circulated that the Muslims had destroyed all written records, but this turned out to be propaganda. The Muslims had actually grabbed as many texts as they could and preserved them, making many copies which they stored in their temples. In the 12th century, Christian crusaders attacked Muslim temples everywhere they could, and it was their attack on a Spanish mosque that led them to rediscover these ancient manuscripts. This rediscovery prompted scholars to scour the world looking for more of these ancient texts, and this led directly to the Renaissance. 1,000 years after the library at Alexandria was destroyed, what knowledge remained prompted new learning, and the courage of men such as Galileo, Bruno, and Kepler to oppose and shrug off the religious dogma that had been holding back mankind ushered in the Age of Enlightenment, not only an age of science, but an age of personal liberty, the only kind of age where science can reign over dogma. So how much did all of this set us back? Well, consider that somewhere in the Library of Alexandria was a text explaining the principles of building a steam engine. It was invented by a hero of Alexandria. Without the constant oppression of the new Christian regime, who knows how many industrious Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians might have started building these inventions and carrying them forward. As it was, we had to wait until 1629 for the principles behind the steam engine to be rediscovered. So where would we be without religious dogma? If we consider the 1200 years after the Great Library's destruction to be picking up where we left off, that would mean that we would have had the level of technology we do in 2008 all the way back in the year 800. Their equivalent of NASA might have put a man on the moon in the 760s instead of the 1960s. Ancient computer programmers might have had to deal with the Y1K bug. And in the new millennium, who knows what we would have accomplished in science, medicine, and space exploration. Cancer, and even the common cold, might be things we only read about as ancient curiosities. The human lifespan might be measured in centuries instead of decades. So the next time you hear someone putting religion over science, attacking science for its destructiveness or immorality, think back on this and make a new resolution. Always follow the evidence, no matter where it leads, even over your most cherished delusions. Don't just do this for your own sake. but for the sake of the rest of humanity as well.